Good evening. What a fun way to start an event, right? All right, good evening. My name is Dr. Lisa Borzuski. I'm the provost here at the Seminole Campus of St. Petersburg College and also at the Health Education Center for St. Petersburg College. It is my absolute honor to welcome you to the grand debate. Today, we celebrate not just an event, but also the incredible journey that brought each of you here. First, congratulations to all of you. Students from 5 outstanding colleges represent us tonight. Hillsborough College, Eastern Florida State College, Palm Beach State College, Daytona State College, and of course, St. Petersburg College. Congratulations for making it thus far. Your dedication, preparation, and courage already set you apart. Debate is more than an academic exercise. Debate is a powerful tool. It sharpens critical thinking. It sharpens your confidence. It teaches you how to lead with clarity and respect. These are skills that will serve you well into your future as leaders in our communities and beyond. This stage is where you spread your wings. Today, you are not just participants. Today, you are ambassadors of ideas, advocates for dialogue, and examples of what collaboration across institutions can do. I want to welcome our honored judges. They will be introduced more thoroughly later on, but thank you for coming and participating in making this event happen tonight. Your dedication to our community is appreciated. So let's celebrate this moment. Students, compete fiercely, speak boldly, and most importantly, learn from one another. Welcome to the grand debate.
Well, good evening. It is so exciting to have you all here in person for our 4th annual Grand Debate. My name is Kimberly Jackson, and I'm the Executive Director for the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions. We are honored to have each of you all here, but most importantly, to the students who I've spent all day with, thank you for your time, thank you for your talent, thank you for taking it seriously, and I'm excited to see what you have tonight. This year, we went to every preliminary round, and I mean every preliminary round, and it was just beautiful to see how many students we've touched. Through all the coaches who have done all your work for the past year and the year before, I'm talking to our repeat colleges. Thank you for the hard work. You know who you are. Hillsborough, Eastern, our new college, Daytona, Palm Beach, and St. Petersburg College. It is a lot of work that you all put in to get here, and it is amazing. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Duke Energy, the Sembler Company, and Ray's Rowdies Foundation for supporting this event. Also, the Cambria, which is our host hotel, has been amazing. They offer a free weekday stay to the Grand Debate. And I want to thank you all for taking time to understand the importance of civics. Congressman Young took this space very seriously, and this Grand Debate is a beautiful space connected to the Institute, which is a nonpartisan organization for the benefit of the Florida college system. Before we begin, always the small things. Please silence your cell phones. The students will already be distracted by many things. We also have a slight beep going on. We ask you to ignore it. There's nothing that we can do about it. I have the pleasure also to introduce my dean, Dean Susan Demers, who I say this all the time lovingly and with fondness, but also snarky. She was my law school professor. She was my trial team coach. She was my moot court coach. She's been my mentor for several decades, she and her husband collectively. She is the reason why I'm at St. Petersburg College. She's a 1971 graduate of Stetson University with a bachelor's degree in speech and theater, and her JD is from the University of Florida College of Law. Since 1982, she has served as the Dean of St. Petersburg College ABA-approved paralegal studies program and taught a variety of law-related classes. She is currently, get this, the Dean of College of Policy, Public Safety, Ethics and Legal Studies at SPC. We call her Law and Order, and one of the most important endeavors in the civic engagement project designed to develop more informed citizens. More importantly, as I bring her to the stage, as she also oversees the Public Policy Administration, she is a lovely soul who cares about the community and has mentored so many of us and taught us the importance and value of giving back. With that, I introduce your moderator. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to get to do this. See, right on cue. It's a distress signal, but you should not be distressed, all right? This is all going to run smoothly, and if it doesn't, we'll handle it. That's sort of the basic rule in life, right? We'll handle it. Things always work out. So with that, let me just say a couple of things about what we're doing here tonight. This is the 15th year of the grand debate. Now, we did this here at SPC for some number of years, and then 4 years ago, the Institute, which had taken over this project maybe 10 years ago, pushed it out to the other schools in the Florida college system. I can't tell you how much that has enriched our experience to be able to work with students from across the state. So we want to say thank you first to all the coaches, participants, early round participants, the people who helped you prepare for that, the researchers who help you do your work for that. This is a huge effort, all leading up to the culmination tonight, but the process is actually more important than the product. And I want you to spend a little time reflecting on that as we finish this up. There are lots of transferable skills that come from public forensics competitions. Obviously, critical thinking and analysis and research. And there is also the ability to handle stress and the ability to figure out who's on your team and when you should just let something go. All of that happens as a part of a competitive environment. Now, the thing about this kind of competition is it feels high stakes, but it's really no stakes, because everyone who's here tonight is a winner. You won when you competed in your first round. So keep that in mind as we go through this tonight. I just want to say to our audience that in these preliminary rounds, our students debated a whole range of timely topics. That meant that everybody in the room, their families at home, and the people who heard those early rounds all learned something about topics they would never have necessarily involved themselves in. So, I start by saying thank you to all of you. I also want to say thank you to your coaches. And I'll just give you this one little thing. Those of us who coach competitive teams really do it for the long run. We know that for the rest of your life, our voices will be whispering in your ears as you make public presentations. So you need to thank those coaches. This is the beginning of a lifelong journey. You are always getting better at public speaking. And there is never a moment in your life when public or private speaking will not make the difference to your quality of life and the quality of life of the people around you. So, that's the end of my preaching on the topic, but I do want to say thank you to all of the people who have made this possible tonight. First of all, Wendy Mitchell, who will serve as our scorekeeper, who is a professor here at St. Petersburg College Seminole Campus. Our timekeeper, Douglas Rivero. He's an assistant dean in the Social and Behavioral Sciences Department. Our referee, Katie Snell. Where did Katie go? There she is. All right, she's faded off the stage and is just there in case we need her. And Professor Snell is a professor On the Clearwater campus, well, soon to be at the Clearwater campus, St. Pete Gibbs this year. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce our judges. This year, we have judges from across the state. First, Jamal Soul is the former Florida Secretary of Commerce. Tony Carvajal is the CEO of the Association of Florida Colleges. You might not know this, but most of us in Florida get messages from the AFC every week. So they play a large backstage role in your education. And finally, Amanda Roden is the president and executive director of the Florida College System Foundation, which does an amazing job at supporting the Florida college system, all 28 of us, but also providing lots of scholarship dollars to our students. Now, let me go over the rules. Tonight's topic, we'll start with this resolution. The government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Now, our students were randomly assigned to a debate opponent. They were randomly assigned to the speaking order, and they were also randomly assigned to the position that they represent tonight. So, the proposition is placed in an affirmative way. The government should, right? The first speaker will always be someone who agrees with the proposition, and they will have 2 minutes to state why they agree with the proposition. The respondent, the disagree side, will then have 2 minutes to state their position on the negative. We then returned to the affirmative speaker, 1 minute, essentially as a rebuttal to what the other side said, and then second speaker as a rebuttal to what the affirmative speaker said. Finally, 1 final minute to wrap up. So it goes 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. A total of 4 minutes for each speaker, a little more than an 8-minute round. Not much. So hang in there. We'll score using this rubric. First of all, we'll look at those opening arguments. Did the student make his or her position and the reasons for it clear? We'll look at comprehension of relevant factors. We'll address the rebuttals and see whether or not the students dealt with what the other speaker laid out. And then that surrebuttal, that final rebuttal, will also examine quality of evidence, credible sources. Finally, the big buckets at the end, presentation style and consistency all the way through. Now, Sebastian and Luke up there will show the actual rules of the competition. Students may use 1 4x6 note card and a blank paper for notes while debating. Points will be deducted if it actually looks like you're reading or reciting from memory. The judges will use the score sheets provided. If you have any questions, you address questions about that to either Professor Rivero or Professor Snell at the end when we first score the round. Okay, so we'll start with the first set of students. Any questions about the rules will be answered by Professor Snell as the referee. Students will not be interrupted while delivering their argument. I'm responsible to keeping to the time, but I have help down here right before me because Dr. Rivero has cards to notify the speakers. I think they're at 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 10 seconds. Is that correct? All right. Finally, I should tell you that students have all selected their own walkout songs, which gives us a little kick up in the energy as they come forward. So sort of try and pull that think about what they're saying about themselves as they've chosen to be introduced this way, all right? And finally, similar to last year, we're in our transitional period. When we finish all 5 official rounds, we'll have a 6th round for free. And the 6th round for free is our faculty debate. Now, you don't have to score them. I don't think they've paid any money extra, but they would love to have you declare a winner, all right? They are not doing it just for fun. They are doing it for glory. So with that, I think we are ready to bring in our first set of competitors. So, Sam, we ready to go? All right. Let's introduce our first set of competitors. They are Lucero Lara Martinez of Daytona State College. And we welcome Marina Reyes Delanoy of EFSC. All righty, here we go. A little shake hands there. Okay, competitors, here we go. Once again, our proposition is the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree or disagree? Taking the agree side is Lucero Lara Martinez. Taking the disagree sign is Marina Reyes Delanoy. So going first, Lucero, you have 2 minutes to make your argument.
I believe that the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Social media platforms control how billions of people communicate every day and access information, yet they operate with almost no government oversight. When profit and engagement are valued over safety, fairness, and transparency, harmful content spreads unchecked and users' rights are left unprotected. My first contention is harmful content and user safety. Unregulated social media usage allows misinformation to cause real-world harm. The U.S. Surgeon General warned that during the COVID-19 pandemic, the amount of misinformation on the internet attributed to thousands of preventable COVID-19 deaths. Furthermore, an MIT study found that false news spread 6 times faster on platforms like Twitter and TikTok, further signifying that the usage of misinformation on social media without regulation, harmful content leads to violence, health risks, and major threats to public safety. My second contention is transparency and fairness. Social media companies apply their moderations inconsistently, harming fairness and free expression. The Knight Foundation found that 70% of Americans believe that platforms enforce rules inconsistently or unfairly, meaning that activists, journalists, and everyday users are often silenced without no clear reason, explanation, or accountability. Without government oversight, users have fewer speech protections online than they would in public spaces. In conclusion, the current system allows misinformation, public harm, and unfair censorship to go unchecked. Government regulation would create clear, consistent standards and would require transparency in how content is moderated. By increasing accountability, regulation would make online spaces safer, fairer, and more trustworthy for everyone, including the millions of Americans who already don't think that it is fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucero. Now, you have 2 minutes for the opposing point of view.
While harmful content online is a valid concern, regulation would have unintended negative consequences. When the government gets to decide what counts as acceptable speech, we risk turning the biggest public forum for free expression into a place where only approved voices can be heard. This sets a dangerous precedent. Social media companies are private spaces, not government agencies. They have community standards. For example, labeling during misinformation during elections or during health crises like COVID-19. Forcing these companies to host free speech would violate their own rights. The Constitution limits government censorship, not private moderation. And there's a real-world example of this. In the Voloch versus James case in New York, they debated the harmful conducts law, which forces sites to police vilifying speech. This violated the First Amendment as stated by the Supreme Court, and this is a clear warning that these regulations chill free expression, not protect them. Furthermore, regulation would help big tech, not the public. The Mercatus Center actually found that these complex rules would favor companies like Meta and Google, which have the money for lawyers. Meanwhile, smaller companies essentially fade away. This monopolizes social media. Finally, the government is simply too slow for the internet. There are around 500 million posts on X every single day. Dr. Klonik from St. John's University said that harmful posts would spread. Meanwhile, social media platforms are stuck doing regulatory paperwork. Government control is not only unconstitutional, it's impractical. When power decides speech, freedom essentially fades. Judges, let's protect open debate, not censor it. Thank you.
Thank you. You now have 1 minute for first rebuttal.
I would like first to clear up the resolution. The resolution states that the government will help regulate the content moderation policies, not the actual content being published. So if it's only helping and help the policies, it means that it is not violating the First Amendment because social media is still the ones that are enforcing it. The government is just setting clear standards because as of right now, going online and saying for content social media companies to say, we do not allow inappropriate behavior on our platforms, that is not clear enough. The government can help further clear that up by saying we do not allow you to show weapons, we don't allow you to threaten people, or we don't allow usage of sexual content online. That is clear, that is efficient, and that is actually helping enforce the rules because social media companies would then have a base to stand on and actually regulate content. She also mentioned COVID-19, but as I stated, misinformation led to thousands of preventable deaths, and that is exactly why government oversight is needed in this environment where misinformation causes harm, and it causes people to have actual real-world consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucero. Marina, 1 minute.
My opponent made the claim that there was thousands of deaths due to COVID-19 misinformation on X. However, how do we know that this correlation equals causation? This cannot be a basis of true fact. Also, in the Next Choice versus Paxton case, which was a recent case on this debate, they said the Supreme Court stated that they host certain content, the government's hosting certain content is actually unconstitutional. And both liberals and conservatives agreed on this. Government outreach is simply unconstitutional. Also, Russia and China made the argument to justify censorship by calling it online safety. How do we know that opening this gate will not lead us to that? America prides itself by being the strongest free speech protections in the whole entire world. This is simply not practical, and it's not going to get passed with our current laws and our current regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Final rebuttal, okay?
My opponent brought up an excellent example of other countries. However, I would like to now bring in the European Union. They already have numerous laws in place that sets examples for social media companies. For example, one of their biggest rules is to protect children. So they have natural laws that say that you cannot post child sexual content, you can't post nude pictures of children, and you can't force children to go online. Those are the 3 rules that they have, and they apply to social media companies. So why can't the U.S. do the same with their own rules? Furthermore, she also says that correlation doesn't equal causation, but a lot of the facts why people didn't get vaccinated during the COVID-19 pandemic is because people claimed that it was in fact a tracker when it was not, and that was found in numerous polls done by numerous people. So if people were not getting vaccinated because of misinformation, that is a direct correlation. Furthermore, I've already addressed the unconstitutionality, which is simply not true. The government is not going to be the one actually censoring or taking down the content. It is still going to be the social media companies enforcing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Final rebuttal, Marina.
My opponent made the claim that the EU works. However, the EU's DSA actually only focuses on data transparency and not deleting posts. So if we're talking about misinformation, is it misinformation in order to delete misinformation? This is what would be needed in order to prevent these preventable deaths. We would need to delete posts. And if we lead government control to decide what this is, how do we know that the politics is not going to take control of this? Regulation would equal repression. How do we know that what one administration calls hate speech and misinformation, they're going to call patriotism for the other? Furthermore, one truth cannot be decided on who's in power. How do we decide truth? You also made the claim that vaccines cannot be, the vaccines in COVID-19 were, thank you.
Thank you. And thus ends the first round. Congratulations, ladies. First out of the box. All right, while the judges complete their scoring sheets, let's call in the second pair of debaters. And I want to take a moment to give a special thank you to the faculty and staff at the various schools who helped make this happen. From Eastern Florida State College, Josh Humphreys, Aaron Baird, and Christy McBride. From Hillsborough Community College, now known as Hillsborough College, Dr. Anne-Marie Coates, Dr. Andrea Vicente and the coaches, Dr. Doug Charles, Dr. Douglas Ponticos, and Dr. Stephanie Lance. From St. Petersburg College, Doug Rivero, Eric Tucker, Katie Snell, Michael Culligan, and Vladar Prifty. From Palm Beach State College, Dr. Kevin Coakley, Greta Jackson, Matthew Lenahan, Sheila Scott Lubin, and Abby Ross. And finally, from Daytona State College, Faith Bryant and Melissa Castorino. So while we're finishing up the scoring, we have a little, I would say, tour of each one of our competing schools. So first off is Eastern Florida State College. Luke?
Your future begins with a choice, a first step in the right direction. Eastern Florida State College can help get you there. Create a great career with a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or a college certificate in high-demand job fields like healthcare, advanced manufacturing, aerospace technology, computer technology, and more. On campus or online, you can find inspiration, support, and success. So, what are you waiting for? Take that first step. Eastern Florida State College, where Titans rise.
All right, let's meet our second set of debaters. Please welcome DeAndre Perkins of Palm Beach State College. And Justice Robinson of Hillsborough College. All right, competitors, are we good to go? Okay. Once again, the issue is the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree? Disagree. Taking the agree side, DeAndre Perkins. Taking the disagree side, Justice Robinson. Going first will be DeAndre. You have 2 minutes to make your argument. The timekeeper will hold up flashcards to let you know when you have 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 10 seconds left. He does have a stop sign, too, I think. Is that correct, Professor Rivera? All right. Start now.
Crime is running rampant throughout the United States of America. Each and every day there is an act of violence, injustice, or treachery that is committed against the innocent. With the widespread use of social media, criminals have even greater access to prey on vulnerable populations, unawares to the dangers on the other sides of their digital devices. Lack of a united front by social media corporations has permeated a breeding ground for predatory behavior. Government moderation of social media platforms will ensure that we can safeguard the youth from viewing traumatic content and vulnerable patrons from the clutches of criminality. Although social media has provided us with an efficient and effective method of information retrieval, degenerate content is easy to attain. Young, feeble minds will view and absorb this content, potentially putting themselves in dangerous situations with negative implications. In fact, in a report done by Bark, which is a social media monitoring company, they found that 58% of tweens and 75% of teens encountered nudity, and 68% of tweens and 82% of teens expressed or experienced violent subject matter or thoughts. This type of content has the potential to have long-standing impacts on the development of social skills. skills, exposes them to violent behavior. It can even lead to them being put in negative situations with negative implications, such as sexual abuse or sexual abduction. Those implementation of age limits, identification verification, and all in all, blocking that activity from being able to be seen on their timelines will ensure that we can safeguard the youth from psychological depravity. Next, government moderation of social media platforms will also ensure that we can safeguard vulnerable patrons from the clutches of criminality, from scams to other forms of fraudulent activity. We see social media being used as a means to take advantage of individuals easily misled into a false way of thinking. In fact, in a report done by the FTC, they found that $12.5 billion was stolen by the elderly alone through social media scams on the internet. And also we have to factor in artificial intelligence. Government moderation will ensure that artificial intelligence, which is becoming more and more difficult to discern real from fake, is moderated effectively so criminals cannot use it to take advantage of the innocent within our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you have 2 minutes for the opposing point of view.
In George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, governments didn't just control what people said, they also control what people thought. Both novels warned us of a world where these people thought that their thoughts and ideas were just shaped by authority more so over freedom. And ironically, these books were banned in the countries that they were made in by the very same people that said they were just trying to protect their people from dangerous ideas. That's the same danger we face when we have the discussion of content moderation with government control. Of course, there is an issue with content moderation, but at the same time, we know this issue exists. We know that there is dangerous content on there, but that is not the real issue. The real issue is who controls and says what is harmful. When private platforms moderate, users can just choose wherever they want to go. They can choose what platforms they want to be on. But when the government steps in, all of that all of a sudden disappears. This same power can be used to silence hate speech. It can also be used to silence dissent tomorrow. The First Amendment restricts the state from any type of federalization on our First Amendment of speech, not private moderation. The moment the state dictates what can or cannot be said online, it becomes the editor of our public opinion. Imagine if every post, meme, or protest that you had to run through a federal checklist. That's not democracy. That's just control. Beyond that, government regulation kills innovation. Platforms like Reddit, YouTube, and X serve different audiences with different community standards. Forcing a one-size-fits-all government rule would erase that diversity, stifle creativity, and punish smaller platforms that cannot keep up with compliance costs. And if the government overregulates, that doesn't stop people from sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, 1 minute rebuttal.
Similar to how water takes the shape of its container and flows along the ground that it's upon, should the warrior be able to adapt to his circumstances and develop a plan of attack against the enemy or situation that he is facing. This quote by Sun Tzu is attributable to today's argument because today's proposal is the government adapting to the technology and the social media and the relationship that it has had to the people within this nation. One of the points that my opponent brought up was that government moderation will only lead to too much government control. But that is exactly why we have the checks and balances set in place. And it's also important to note that we aren't going to strong-arm these social media platforms into adhering to these types of regulations that we set up. We're still going to have them have a real big influence in terms of making those regulations in the first place. Another thing that is imperative to note is the social contract. Certain sacrifices must be made in order to protect the greater good and the commonwealth of the people. And that is exactly what government moderation does, is it adheres to the social contract. Forgotten people and forgotten voices exist everywhere, and they're neglected, or those forgotten are remembered with today's legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 1 minute for your rebuttal.
So if government regulation creates safety, why don't we just start enforcing the actual laws we have on social media? Wouldn't that seem a much bigger change than trying to change what people say and what people post on social media? If people are committing crimes on social media, they should face the consequences just as they would in real life. It's not saying that you can't post whatever you want. It's not saying that you can't have your freedom. It's not saying that you can't have your creativity. It's simply just enforcing the laws that already exist upon us. There is no say-so in what someone can tell you, whether it's, oh, I want to post about this protest. I want to spread word about what's going on online. I want to create something funny. I want to be a part of this community. There is no dictation on whether these things can happen or not, just based off of whatever the government wants. It's simply just, if you break the law, you face the consequences. So why not just enforce that? I encourage everyone to think about that. Thank you.
All right. Second rebuttal, Mr. Perkins.
In the long-standing history of mankind, those that have learned how to collaborate and improvise are those that have prevailed. Government moderation of social media platforms would help to protect our public's youth, protect our public's financial integrity, and protect our public's overall well-being, combating the compromise of young minds and predatory behavior on these social media platforms. Although I do understand what my opponent is saying and that the government is already going to be holding people accountable for breaking the law, when it comes to social media, that extra level of accountability is held and upheld or provided to these social media platforms. Mediation of this information that is disseminated on these social media platforms will ensure that the values of patriotism and democracy are upheld throughout all ends of the spectrum. One of the main priorities of any government is to keep its people safe. And with government moderation of social media platforms, that is exactly how we do it. Support today's proposal, and you support a better future for America. Thank you.
And your final rebuttal.
My opponent argues that government accountability requires oversight. But if the government is simply just supposed to be protecting kids and mental health, would you say that that is more of a cultural issue than it is a government regulation issue? Are you basically implying that the government can parent our children better than the actual parents can? I don't think any parent would agree with that, because we have also seen in several cases that government regulation, when it comes to our children's safety, doesn't always work. It doesn't always keep the kids safe. There are already laws in place to help with that. So what does government regulation do to protect our children? And regarding our mental health on social media isn't a government regulation problem. It's a consumption problem. It's an addiction problem. It is a self-image problem. So maybe if we start having what if we have regulation on social media and it stops us from representing who we are and what we see as confident? Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes round 2. Congratulations. Nice job, guys. Thank you. All righty. So let's call in our third set of debaters. And let me just parenthetically say, this is year 12 since the Great Debate was reactivated by the Institute, and the 4th year since colleges from around the state have joined us. Topics in previous years have been suppression of free speech, guns on campus, stand your ground, legalization of medical marijuana, eliminating term limits, all lightweight topics, right? And we're doing pretty much the same sort of heavyweight topic tonight. Well, we'll just see in a few minutes who takes home the crown this year. For now, let's take our next campus tour. This is Hillsborough Community College, now known as Hillsborough College.
Find your path at Hillsborough Community College. HCC offers affordable, flexible options for earning an associate degree or certificate. Our dynamic learning environment offers expert faculty and engaging student life, and our convenient class schedules fit your schedule. Then seamlessly transfer to a 4-year university or start your career right away. At HCC, we'll get you there. Register now at hccfl.edu.
All righty. Let's welcome our third set of debaters, Derek Splinter of Hillsborough College, and please meet James Bain of St. Petersburg College. All right, gentlemen, are we ready to proceed? Okay. Once again, the issue is the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree to my right, disagree to my left. Taking the agree side is Derek Splinter. Taking the disagree side is James Bain. Going first will be Derek. You have 2 minutes to make your argument.
Good evening. The government should moderate the content social media is promoting. Private corporations have no business regulating our laws. This is the Wild West. There is no repercussion that can be taken against a social media company. Let's go back to 2017, January 7th. Facebook would roll back its social media moderation policy. Not even 6 months later, in Myanmar, 700,000 people would be refugees, with thousands dead. Amnesty International, the United Nations, would call this a genocide, and the resulting fact-finding mission would blame Facebook directly as a contributor for this. Corporations are not incentivized to take care of us. They're incentivized to generate profit. They're incentivized to create more radical content, to get more clicks and more likes. 4chan, WorldStar, or X are all incentivized to create more radical and insidious content to keep you on the platform. Or even Facebook, which socially engineers you into the rat in a maze, all in an effort to keep you going for one more click and one more like, all to sell your data. The U.S. Department of Commerce says that Facebook, and all social media, grosses $252 billion a year. 40% of that comes from people under the age of 18. Does the government have no responsibility to regulate this? A company has zero legal responsibility to moderate, and there is no accountability that can be held to them. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1934 specifically states this. And the last case to remark on this is 1997 AOL versus Xeron. These laws are outdated. This is the Wild West. There is no legal responsibility that can be held to any social media platform. Any content can be put on the platform, and nothing is moderated by the government or anyone. Thank you.
Now, James, you have 2 minutes for the opposing point of view.
When the government gains the power to regulate social media content, we risk silencing the voices that oppose their narrative. Take Dr. Martin Kodrow, for example, a Harvard epidemiologist who co-wrote the Great Barrington Declaration. He argued that indeed COVID-19 vaccines were vital for the elderly and the vulnerable. However, children with natural immunity didn't need them. For sharing his evidence-based opinion, Twitter flagged and restricted his posts undergoing government pressure. Yet studies later confirmed that he was right. Natural immunity was a strong protection against this virus. This case shows how political influence can turn science into censorship. Giving any government the authority to monitor online content risks inviting in political abuse. History has shown us what happens when this occurs. It becomes a tool to silence dissent. This isn't protection. This is a first step towards authoritarian control. When officials decide what information is allowed, we risk suppressing the views of the minority, potentially manipulating elections, and it forces its people to conform to their opinion to further their own interests. Question: who decides what is true? What happens when truth is met with new evidence? Across the world, we have seen the consequences. In the United Kingdom, people were arrested for posting memes. In Canada, proposed online harm laws could potentially criminalize politically charged humor. In Spain, Senator Miguel Castillo was sentenced to 1 year for criticizing his own government. If democracy is already punishing its citizens for creating jokes, imagine what full government regulation could look like. When citizens lose the freedom to question, they lose the power to think. Government regulation should be allowed, but it's by its citizens and by independent parties. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute for your first rebuttal.
Good afternoon. Let's talk about the UK. Those people in the UK were tried for promoting racial violence. These are criminals we are talking about. They were held to the law of the United Kingdom. The government has a duty and responsibility to prevent foreign actors along with domestic actors. In 2024, 2 Russian agents were sent up to trial for spending $10 million on bribing YouTube to try to promote favorable coverage for Russia. The government has a responsibility not only to protect your free speech, but to prevent harmful speech. Harmful speech such as lying about you, promoting hateful content, or even promoting illegal content. The government has a responsibility for both to also defend your free speech, because that is what the government does, the First Amendment. It is not the duty of a private corporation to do that. Thank you.
Your first rebuttal, James, 1 minute.
My question is, are we not responsible for what we consume? You mentioned a statistic where children under the age of 18 consume harmful content. Are their parents and guardians not responsible for what they consume? You also mentioned a statistic about the genocide that happened due to Facebook. How does that correlate to government regulation that Facebook would have to consume? I also would like to mention that this is also a slippery slope. The First Amendment states that we have a right to free speech. Online and social media is just another version of this free speech. Should this not also be protected? Thank you.
Thank you. And Derek, your second rebuttal, 1 minute.
Yes, free speech should be protected. That is why it is a First Amendment right. But this goes both ways. That is government regulation to defend your free speech. The genocide. Why is a private corporation allowing for a genocide and our government does nothing about it? There is nothing recourse-wise that can be done against this. There is no legal recourse. Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act specifically states that anything posted on a private platform or a private hosting website, no legal action can be taken, civil or otherwise. It is imperative that the U.S. government regulates some amount of social media. We're trying to get to baseline 1, and we're at baseline 0 right now. There is no regulation whatsoever. And why is a private corporation allowed to impose laws upon us, whether it be what we say or what we don't say? It should be in the hands of the government. We're using our legal system and our legislative system. Just like the government has checks and balances, a corporation needs checks and balances, and they have no checks and or balances.
Thank you, Derek. And finally, James, your final rebuttal.
I first would like to say that I don't condone violence at all. However, I do agree that some regulation should be provided. However, it shouldn't be up to the government. It should be up to its own citizens. It should be up to private, independent oversight and other communities. I also would like to add in the First Amendment also, where it gives you the right to free speech. I would like to reiterate that the online atmosphere and social media is another version of free speech. Now, what is said on that has to be filtered by the own platforms such as Instagram or Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you both. And that concludes this round. Nice job, gentlemen. All righty. While the judges do their work, let's call in the fourth pair of debaters. And I want to note here, parenthetically, that this isn't just about education. Our third place winner takes home a $250 prize. Our second place winner takes home a $500 prize. And our first place winner takes home a $1,200 prize and a weeknight stay at the Cambria Hotel, who is hosting you for this weekend. So, let's take a peek right now at SPC's campus tour.
St. Petersburg College, home of the Titans, empowers our students and community to achieve success and economic mobility through academic excellence and engagement. Today, we educate over 46,000 students in more than 180 degree, transfer, and certificate programs. Our graduates fill jobs that stimulate the economy with an $855 million annual impact on Pinellas County.
I think I could recommend St. Petersburg College as a program because it's specifically tailored and designed from the very beginning to have the exact skills that are going to be expected of a student when they walk out the door with their degree.
As a leader in online education, St. Petersburg College offers more than 50 fully online degree programs, providing our students with flexible scheduling that fits into their busy lives. And with 11 learning sites across Pinellas County, SPC has a local presence in the communities where our students live, work, and play. The first community college in Florida to offer 4-year degrees, SPC provides more than a dozen bachelor's programs that help our graduates make more out of their careers.
The people that I have engaged with there are phenomenal. They're so open to really doing what's best for the student. We've hired about 35 students just in the past few years. Some of these students have already seen multiple promotions. St. Pete College is always looking for ways to make it as beneficial as possible for the students to be able to get a degree and to get the education that they need to be successful out in the workplace.
The college has also built unique partnerships with the University of South Florida and Florida A&M University that guarantee students admission to certain programs once they earn their associate degree at SPC. We graduate thousands of students each term, and our grads are ranked first for highest entry-level wages among Florida community college graduates with an average annual graduation salary of $51,000. And more than 90% of our graduates find jobs in the field, continue their education, or serve in the military. SPC is removing barriers to student success by offering affordable education options at half the cost of state universities. In fact, each year, SPC awards nearly $6 million in scholarships and $125 million in financial aid to our students.
My internships that I had through St. Petersburg College provided invaluable experience. I believe I've had so much success because I had such wonderful professors at St. Petersburg College. Everything that they did and do for their students really help you long term.
Our talented faculty and staff are here for our students. 97% of faculty members hold advanced degrees, and we also offer free tutoring, career resources, personal advising, student clubs and organizations, and a community of care that is committed to supporting our students from application to graduation and beyond.
All right. Judges, ready to go? Excellent. Let's meet the fourth set of debaters. Welcome Antonio Valley of Daytona State College. And welcome Catalina Gallatin of Palm Beach State College. There you go. Thank you. So, once again, the issue is the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree? Disagree? Taking the agree side is Antonio Valley. Taking the disagree side is Catalina Gallatin. Going first will be Antonio. You have 2 minutes to make your argument.
Good evening, everyone. As I'm sure you're all aware, over the last 2 decades, social media has exploded in popularity, going from small little websites to share pictures to a vast ocean of content that you can explore. Now, of course, with this vast ocean of content comes bad actors, those who wish to do harm to individuals in one way or another. Now, this is what social media content moderation policies are for, to protect the individual. However, this can and has gone awry in the past. In 2021, Twitter knowingly hosted child sexual abuse material on its website, despite multiple requests to take it down. They were actually sued for this, and it took a federal law enforcement officer getting involved to finally have them remove this, as they claimed it, quote, did not violate any of its policies, end quote. On the opposite spectrum of this, YouTube has faced repeated criticism for individuals claiming that they were censored for having the wrong opinions on the platform, for not agreeing with YouTube. And given all of this, this is why federal regulation of social media's content moderation policies is necessary. It is important for us to set a standard, set a bar across all of social media, that when a user accesses a site, uses a site, they will be safe, they will be protected from these terrible things I mentioned earlier. And while they are there, they will have their First Amendment rights protected. Because we are a nation founded on the ideals of freedom of speech and the social responsibility that comes with this. And in the age of social media, it is all the more important today. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Catalina, you have 2 minutes for the opposing point of view.
Ladies and gentlemen and esteemed judges, imagine a world where every time you went on the internet, you looked at a video, you looked at a tweet, you looked at a post, it passed through a government filter. Imagine where when you went online, the policy that was there was not allowed. It is actually really dangerous if you have the government to step in and to regulate the content moderation platform policies of these platforms, because you are indirectly overstepping the First Amendment right and free speech, the freedom to petition the government. In fact, when you look at other countries in the world that currently are regulating the content moderation policies on platforms, for instance, Russia, you can see that this is not a step that the American government wants to take. In fact, according to the United Nations Human Rights, you can see that recently 22 members of Russia's anti-war committee were recently exiled for their opposition on the war in Ukraine. Now, why would a free nation like the United States want to emulate those similar policies here, where we have freedom of speech, when we have the right to petition the government, where we can speak freely on these issues? If you start going down in this direction, it's a slippery slope where government interference will start silencing voices, whistleblowers, journalists. All of this criticism is important to the growth and the continuing technology development and so on in the United States. This is why we cannot have these moderation policies regulated by the government. In fact, there is a Supreme Court case, Net Choice v. Paxton, which clearly defined that the government cannot interfere with private entities and their content online. Facebook was allowed to have this content because they're a private entity and they have their own editorial rights to control what they have as a company on their platform. This is a fundamental right of the United States, and is why I believe we need to protect it, not just for us, but for the entire world. Thank you.
Great. Now, Antonio, you have 1 minute for your first rebuttal.
To respond to my opponent's claims, simply put, we need not go to the extremes of content regulation where an individual is simply not allowed to criticize the government. Content moderation is already a thing that exists, and so far, despite its failings, it has overall served good purpose. All federal regulation would do is standardize that practice across the board. It wouldn't need to infringe on your freedom of speech to say something wrong with the government. It simply needs to sit there and say that you need to enforce your policies as a social media site, and these social media sites need to uphold your First Amendment right to freely speak your mind. Thank you.
And now, Catalina, your first 1 minute rebuttal.
So my opponent brings up the point that the government moderating these content policies is actually protecting the people and protecting the First Amendment and the rights we have in the United States, but that is simply not true, because when the government gets involved, it only creates more finicky and issues that do not need to happen. In fact, the private companies and the social media companies who are actually running these social media platforms have the experience and the knowledge that it takes to run a platform properly. In fact, if we do concern the youth, and if we're concerned about all of these issues, illegal content, graphic content that might be damaging the youth, and so on, then we need to enforce the private entities and the people who own these companies to take it seriously and adjust their policies. They can work together, the social media platforms, to create stricter regulations, but the government does not need to get involved. It does not go well, and we are not a fascist or a communist country where we have this type of laws. Thank you.
Antonio, 1 minute for your rebuttal.
As my opponent stated, and I can understand this concern of, will this infringe upon my right to freely speak, any of my rights as an individual, I must simply put, as I stated earlier, we don't have any evidence that this will be a slippery slope on which we will fall down into the trap of fascism or communism. To give you an example of where federal regulation helps the individual, when you go to the grocery store, there is a list of your ingredients on there, what you are consuming, and that is necessary to understand what you are putting in your body. This is a federal regulation that is helpful to the average individual, and when done right with proper consideration, it only serves to help the individual and ensure that they have that right of freedom of speech and that they will be protected online when using these social media websites. Thank you.
Catalina, 1 minute, final rebuttal.
Again, it should not be the government that does this. It should be the CEOs and the people who are involved with these social media platforms to do this. If the government starts to get involved and starts to control the policies, he who rules the rules is those that controls the minds of the populace. You cannot allow the government to have, and the current political party in power, it shifts, but again, if you have that type of it happening in the United States, then you risk the fact that America could be a bubble in which we are all thinking the same. You do not want to have these policies because then you are encouraging the fact that we are going to be limited in our viewpoints, and why we need criticism, why we need whistleblowers, why we need journalists is to improve over time. This is why it is critical that we leave this up to the private companies and we allow social media platforms to control themselves. Thank you, and I appreciate your concerns, but again, not the government, the private companies. Thank you.
Thank you both. All righty, that's the end of the fourth round of debate. So this is a centuries-old tradition that's not too different in what you're rolling out tonight as it was 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, even longer. So I just want to say congratulations to all of the folks who jumped in to engage in this ancient tradition. Alrighty, let's take a moment to look at Daytona State College. Let's meet the fifth set of debaters. Welcome Costin Lewis of Eastern Florida State College. And meet Kingston James of St. Petersburg College. All righty, ready to proceed? Once again, the issue is, yes, please, shake hands. That's part of the ritual. We're all on the same team. The issue is, listen carefully, we haven't changed it, but just to make sure what you're debating. The government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree? Disagree? Taking the agree side is Costin Lewis. Taking the disagree side is Kingston James. Going first will be Costin. You have 2 minutes to make your argument.
The World Wide Web has been likened to the Wild West for good reason. Swaths of content, both morally and legally dubious, have become a defining characteristic of social media and the internet as a whole. Look firstly towards misinformation. In a study published beneath the United States National Institute of Health, it was found that 85% of posts on then Twitter contained false assertions or misinformation. This misinformation fueled vaccine avoidance, mask refusal, and even the usage of unsubstantiated medications. And the study follows that this misinformation, during only early 2020, is estimated to have been responsible for 6,000 hospitalizations and 800 deaths, demonstrating that not only is misinformation on social media real, but that it is deadly. Further issues plaguing social media include online harassment, known also as cyberbullying. In a study by the Pew Research Center, it was found that 50% of teenagers in the United States report having been cyberbullied in the past, and furthermore, that a similar percentage of teenagers in the United States desire legal repercussions for cyberbullies. The effects of cyberbullying can range from mild hits to one's confidence, to depression, and unfortunately even to suicide, as demonstrated in many articles. By realizing the government's responsibility to regulate social media companies' content moderation policies, these companies can be legally directed to assign more resources to the mitigation and moderation of these issues that are online harassment and misinformation, thereby greatly reducing these statistics. Because judges, certainly we share the belief that the government holds the ultimate obligation of protecting its citizens. These endemics of misinformation and online harassment have proven themselves to be real, sometimes life-threatening dangers, which, without the government's aid, will only result in more harm done. Thank you.
All right. Now, Kingston, you have 2 minutes for the opposing side.
Social media has become an integral part of modern-day society, with 68% of adults reporting that they use Facebook and 47% of adults reporting that they use Instagram. In addition, with hate speech on the rise and 2/3 of adults experiencing online hate speech, it is easy to jump to the conclusion of government intervention. Upon further observation, though, one can see that government intervention of social media content moderation deprives American citizens of their right to run a business the way that they please. In the past, the government has regulated a select few industries, such as airwaves, oil, and food. It is because these industries relied on scarce resources that were necessary for Americans. Social media sites, on the other hand, while it may not seem like it, are the sole property of their owners. And these owners, just like any other American citizen, can run their business for any purpose they please, even if it's just to make money. While hate speech online has been a rising concern, the government has already stated that content moderation is best left in the hands of the social media companies. Section 230 of the Communications Act allows social media companies to regulate on a stricter standard than the First Amendment as long as they act in good faith. Some say that government intervention would allow for stricter content moderation, but in reality, the government can only monitor what is legal and what is not, which would lead to an increase in morally dubious content. In closing, the regulation of social media allows for American citizens to be deprived of their fundamental right to run a business, halting progress. I'd like to close with a quote by Herbert Spencer. Each man has the right to do as he pleases, as long as he does not infringe on the equal right of every man. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Costin, you have 1 minute for your first rebuttal.
My opponent makes the claim that social media is integral to society, and this is correct. It's exactly the reason why regulation is necessary. Social media is the modern-day public square, and misinformation has a demonstrably negative effect on on the public. A study published underneath the United States National Institute of Health found that 17,000 deaths were associated with the misusage of hydroxychloroquine as sparked by misinformation on social media regarding its usage as a possible cure to COVID-19. Furthermore, my opponent makes the claim that regulation deprives companies of their right to control themselves. And while this may be true, what is the value of a company's right to control themselves when citizens' lives are at stake? This is the ultimate value of the government, to protect its citizens. To claim that the regulation of these companies is deprived is irrelevant in consideration of the government's ultimate obligation to protect its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Kingston, 1 minute.
So you brought up the fact that these companies function as a public square. And if we were to make them start functioning as a public square legally, there would be decreased moderation. There are things that you can say in a government building and you're not allowed to be kicked out, where if you're in a private building, then the owners have the right to moderate you and kick you out to a higher standard because it is their square. In addition, you mentioned that people ended up having terrible things happen to them because of posts made by other people. but it's a cornerstone of American law that if somebody does something and somebody takes that information and then does something bad with it, they are not responsible. We have to keep a legal mind when looking at this. These companies are not publishing data that is inherently legal. Everything that is on the social media sites is okay. Even if it does lead to negative effects, the companies should not be held responsible for it, and they should not be restricted by regulations. Thank you.
Finally, Costin, final rebuttal.
I'd like to make the claim that regulation does not necessarily mean kicking one out of the public square. Regulation can merely be the inclusion of certain banners or comments on information posted on social media to allow others to understand that this is not exactly the entire truth that is shown in their tweet or their social media post. And furthermore, yes, misinformation can be regulated. The regulation of misinformation on social media is, again, the government's responsibility. And it's not necessarily a violation of free speech, as my opponent seems to make the case, as evidenced by the Shank versus U.S. case in 1919, a landmark Supreme Court case wherein it was successfully argued that with the regulation of a clear and present danger, free speech can be regulated by the government. And what is a more clear and present danger than the deaths, again, of these 17,000 citizens, or these 800, depending on my source? Well, thank you.
Finally, final rebuttal, 1 minute.
Thank you. So once again, looking at the legal aspect, we have to consider that social media companies are defined by the FCC as interactive computer services. Similar sites like Google are also applied as interactive computer services. We can't pick or choose what websites, what services need to be regulated. We live in a country where the narrative changes every single 4 years. And if we are going to hold ourselves to a standard, and even the act of putting banners and forcing companies to put banners, social media sites are the private property of their owners. We wouldn't force a restaurant owner to put a sign in their window because the governor asked them to. It is their private property in the end. Once again, you brought up that if it poses an immediate danger, it needs to be regulated. But don't social media companies already spend billions of dollars to regulate their own sites? I know Facebook alone had a $3.7 billion advertising budget. So we need to think of the financial difference which the government would unfairly impose on these companies. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. All righty. So these final tally sheets. And we're ready for the lagniappe, the extra course here. We've completed our formal debate. This is the 4th annual grand debate. St. Pete College, Eastern Florida, Hillsborough Community College have participated all 4 years. Palm Beach State College and Daytona State College have joined this year. Miami-Dade College and Polk State College have participated in the years past as well. We welcome all state colleges to participate in our future debates as we think it trains the next generation of thinkers and leaders. Let's take a view of Palm Beach State College's campus tour.
Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector.
All righty. Well, to take the pressure off our tabulation team down here, we have our 6th round, the 6th set of debaters. the faculty. They're going to debate exactly the same topic using the same rules. They will not be scored, and therefore, we will not have a winner.
We'll see.
All right. I knew mud would be slung. Okay, please welcome Professor Christian Moriarty of St. Petersburg College. Of course. Beastie Boys, yeah. And Professor Doug Charles of Hillsborough College. Okay, again, the issue is the government should regulate the content moderation policies of social media companies. Agree, disagree. Taking the agree side is Christian Moriarty. Taking the disagree side is Doug Charles. Going first will be Christian. You have 2 minutes, Professor Moriarty, to make your argument.
Thank you, ma'am. That's my boss, by the way. I got to impress her real good right now, so you can all laugh at my jokes. I also want to say that we did not plan this. You are not seeing double. We're just really fine-suited gentlemen over here. I think one is to recognize the very real situation that we are currently in, is that there are 3 companies, and let's be honest, probably 3 people, that effectively control, consolidate, and moderate what I am now going to refer to as the digital infrastructure of democracy. The means in which we communicate our ideas and our ideals are being significantly controlled behind a screen, behind a facade of hidden algorithms that dictate what we can and cannot say as we communicate the important ideas of our democracy. We faced very real challenges here. Since 2012, we have been able to recognize that Facebook has significantly incentivized and even encouraged messages of genocide in Myanmar. Because of that, I am recommending minimal, common sense, and constitutional regulations on how we work with these social media companies and how we can get along to be able to communicate with each other effectively and principally. So my learned colleague will more than likely say that any kind of regulation might be a breach of the First Amendment. And I will tell you ahead of time that no recommendation that I would make would do so. Everything would just be to encourage transparency, the ability to audit algorithms, and being able to see a risk assessment of any potential dangers. And indeed, once that comes to the light, people will be able to make the determination themselves, and the free market itself will be able to come to us, foresee what is actually useful for us to be debating are these important topics, and go forward in our future to maximize our democracy. At the end of the day, this is not to constrain speech, this is to maximize it.
And Professor Charles, 2 minutes for your opposing view.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank Christian for the well-measured, excellent argument. Tonight, I will be arguing that we should not have the government regulate speech, content moderation for social media platforms. I have a number of reasons why, 3 mainly. Number 1, it creates an undue burden on the state to be able to manage all this. Second of all, it creates an undue burden on these companies to be able to function under all this. And thirdly, it creates an undue burden on the people who, as you were describing, are already struggling to deal with things like disinformation. So firstly, in terms of the state, let's be real here. Moderating content online is no small task. This is a Leviathan task. The amount of, just YouTube alone, the amount of minutes of content that are uploaded every day is beyond what any humans would be able to actually be able to look at and check out. Right now, AI tools are being used to look at a lot of this. And for that reason, I really want you to question how much democracy will we really be injecting into oversight into something like this if robots are doing it anyway? On top of that, I want you also to consider, we're talking about the United States in terms of government, but these are global platforms. What is another country, what are the EU going to think about the United States deciding content moderation for its citizens? This is something that puts companies in an impossible place, which is my second argument. How are companies supposed to navigate all these different policies to make every country happy around the world? Secondly, how are they going to deal with the fact that many times they're going to be questioning whether to censor governments that are using these platforms to run campaigns, advocate for different things. They might accuse or even start wars over things like election interference. It's really serious. Thirdly, my final argument is this puts an undue burden on the people who treat the media as the fourth estate, something to hold the government accountable to make sure that it's not lying to them. I'm not pointing any fingers here or saying this is likely, but what if a government takes down a video of something that's trying to hold them accountable, declares that it's a deep fake or something? This causes citizens to not be able to trust their government. Thank you.
Christian, first rebuttal.
Well, just as I predicted, my learned colleague made an argument that I was not making. The simple regulation here is we're not talking about government regulating speech. We are not talking about the government, what you can say or not say. Indeed, this is to make sure that people can say what they want to say. The regulations that I'm recommending are ones that have already been adopted by 12 tech companies and have been endorsed, including Google and Facebook. The idea here is just to be transparent in their algorithms, to be more clear in how they make moderation decisions. That way that we can all make the determination for ourselves where we want to put our money and where we want to put our voices. Indeed, the EU has all these regulations already, and I think the Americas are already dealing with it pretty well, I dare say. So, indeed, we're not controlling lying. We're not controlling what is true or not. We are simply expanding the idea of people being able to know where they're posting and what that means to themselves.
Doug, first rebuttal, 1 minute.
I think this is an excellent rebuttal in the sense that you are identifying that there is ways to moderate speech that aren't necessarily always First Amendment breaches. But realistically, as you mentioned, while U.S. citizens are currently enjoying, arguably, some of the regulations that EU has placed in online platforms, a lot of these deal with things like e-commerce. They don't delve into things like misinformation or content moderation in a very deep sense. If we talk about something like content moderation, there's, of course, your big scale in terms of what you're able to post, but take a site like Reddit. A lot of the moderation happening on a website like that is done by other users that are done. To what extent, how deep does this run? Will the U.S. government have its fingers all the way down to moderators, everyday users? And how can it claim jurisdiction over citizens of other countries that are operating on these sites, making calls about what to censor and what not to censor? I think this is unfortunately going to create a bureaucratic nightmare, an international clash that we haven't seen the likes of in a while.
Christian, 1 minute, final rebuttal.
I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan there. Well, there he goes again. Indeed, there is no censorship being recommended in these ideas. The regulation is specifically to protect speech so people can understand whether they're moderated and to what extent. Indeed, there is no recommendation on the table to censor any speech whatsoever. Indeed, there's precedent for such regulation of important infrastructure that goes across our nation. The airline industry is heavily regulated, but we, of course, do not censor them or tell them what they can say or not. The finance industry, communications writ large, all of these are regulated for the protection and the transparency of our democracy. It should be no different that even just as important, if not more important, infrastructure that is important to our democracy is regulated to protect the democracy that we all live in. Again, these ideas are not to censor speech, they are to protect them. Thank you.
And Douglas, you have 1 minute for the final word on the topic of the evening.
All right. I agree that in the abstract, this sounds like a strong idea. And to be honest, there's a lot I've heard up here that I don't necessarily disagree with. It's just that when I'm trying to practically envision how this is going to play out, I'm thinking of questions of who's going to make these shots? Which branch of government is this? Is this going to be something under the FCC? Is this something that's going to have congressional oversight committees? While I don't necessarily think that it's impossible to have bipartisan situations with this, I do think that this casts a pretty ominous shadow over our online democracy, essentially. This question of if somebody constrains somebody's speech online, they violate a content moderation policy and they're running for office. Is that interfering with an election? And also, if you have one party in control, right, of the executive branch or has more influence on one of these congressional committees, we're going to start to get into these questions of, all right, well, how did that affect the election? Did this threaten a lot of our issues? Did this feel like a fair election? This is stuff that's really at the backbone of our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you both. So just give me a moment here to find out where we are in the process. All right, so while these folks join me, I have a few questions for them. So let me just start by asking, generally speaking, for how many of you is this your first, starting with the first round, your first experience in forensicating? Yeah, public speaking. No? Oh, there you go.
This is my first real experience. Thank you. This is my first real experience with a debate, besides the previous one. In high school, I've done a couple debates, but they were all completely unserious, and that was years ago. I didn't do very well in them, and that's why I'm doing this now, because, I wanted to prove something to myself, I guess. I don't know.
Anybody else down here, down the line? Is this your first experience?
I did 1 or 2 in high school. To me, every experience feels like the first one every single time. I do think that with time, it'll get better, but I'm talking like years ahead. The nerve's still there, but the passion is what's the most important to me. In having civil discourse with, young people like myself, it's just something that's just inspiring.
Is it what you thought it would be, this whole experience?
It was everything and more, actually. Coming into it, I was very nervous. But after, of course, competing and then having the opportunity to listen to my fellow opponents, it was just beautiful. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
This is also my first experience debating.
Will you do it again?
Hopefully I get better and I get used to the stage and all that stuff.
So what made you do it?
My professor actually let me know about it.
That's what I like, strong-arm professors, yes.
Yeah, so hopefully I can keep developing those relationships with my professors and keep getting better and more comfortable.
Awesome. Justice, what's the answer for you?
This is actually only my second debate, so it was very nerve-wracking at first coming in here because I didn't know the expertise of everybody. I didn't know how many debates anybody else had done. So I was under the impression that I was probably the only one in here whose second time debating is this one. But I think it was a great experience. It was a great learning process for me. And it taught me some new things about myself, and I'm looking forward to exploring those things, actually.
Excellent. So, Derek?
Hey, this is my fourth. I did Grand Debate last year, and then I also did the 2 with Hillsborough College.
You are a part of, or do you?
Yes, me and Justice right now is our team, yes.
Excellent. All right. That's good. And so does that mean you're really thinking about doing this as maybe a key part of a career in the future?
Yes, I plan on going to project management or engineering management. So talking and getting up there and giving business speeches, I think, will be important to the keeping engineering going.
Absolutely. So Antonio, tell us about your experience with this.
This is my second time if you count our preliminary round. So, quite frankly, I'm surprised I was even here. I didn't know that I was taking part in this until about 15 minutes before our initial round.
Ooh.
I went down there to see, and they said, "Hey, you're debating." And I go, "What?" And so I had 15 minutes, and I jotted down some notes, and I went up there and spoke, and then they said I made the travel team.
Well, so let me just say, I shouldn't be asking you any questions about who assisted you with your research.
My research?
Yeah.
Me, myself, I.
Aha. All righty. There you go. Okay.
So this is my fourth debate, if you count all the prelims. And I think, though, each one's like the first all over again, because debate is such like a conversation of minds, and everyone's just so unique. So every time you run into someone new, even if you're not necessarily going against them, it's like a whole new climate.
Very cool. And I will guarantee you that for the rest of your life, if you really think about it, it's different every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've lost count of what number of debates this is for me. I do competitive speech and debate for high school since I'm dual enrolled. I've been doing it for like 3 years now. So it's been quite a while, and I do it with the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative, so still very local. And public speaking is just one of my many, many passions.
Excellent. All righty. Catalina?
So I came last year as the coach for Palm Beach State College, and this year I was actually able to compete, and I will say that it is far more nerve-wracking when you're actually on the stage. But I think the whole experience is just really great. When you get out of your shell and you start to really get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you start to grow in a way that you haven't before. And I think that St. Petersburg College offering this Institute for Strategic Public Policy Solutions is a great opportunity for us students who go to school at these community and state colleges that we don't normally get much of. So this is a great chance and an opportunity for all of us to really get that experience in debate and to grow ourselves and get better. So thank you so much.
Well, it is our pleasure, but we also hope that just the travel experience, the opportunity to meet people from across the state and see that we're all sort of the same, actually. So tell me.
Well, obviously I didn't debate, but just watching everybody on here who
You're one of our alternates?
Yeah, one of the alternates. And just watching everybody, you guys did such a great job, and it was amazing to just learn from you guys, to hear different perspectives, things I didn't even think about when encountering this debate. So it was just amazing to learn from you guys. Thank you.
Hi. So this is my first debate in a while, but I used to do high school speech and debate back in when I used to go to high school. So I'm in nursing now, but I wanted to kind of, again, get out of that shell and really participate in an extracurricular activity. I definitely enjoy just speaking about different topics and providing my opinion on especially a lot of political topics. So thank you all for your time today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Deonte.
Hi, I'm an alternate for Palm Beach State College, and my first debating experience was the preliminary round I had for this debate. But I'm really grateful to come here and observe because I want to be a lawyer, so I have to learn how to public speak, and I want to be able to learn more about debating because I really admire people who are able to think on their feet and think logically on their feet and form a line of reasoning and be able to address other points. So I think that's something that I look forward to learning at future debates as well, the more I go into this.
Hi, everyone. I'm Everett, and I'm the coach for Palm Beach State. So I'm kind of like the alternate of the alternate. But no, the preliminary round of the debate was my first debate ever. And when I went up there, I was nervous. Like, even preparing for the event, I was extremely nervous because I'd never done that before. But the environment there was so incredible and made me want to come back to this event and others in the future because everyone's just so nice, so articulate in the way they speak. Everyone is very intelligent. And that just, to me, really shows, like, the way our youth are moving and the way that we are all moving as college students. And I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of everyone that was able to come up here today because it's scary. I mean, public speaking is terrifying. So I'm really excited and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
You are absolutely right. The statistics show that people would rather confront a snake, confront a spider, and many, many people would rather die than engage in public speaking. So really, congratulations to all of you. And you are?
Hello, I'm Andrea, and I'm also an alternate. And something that I have realized watching everyone debate is when you're actually passionate about a topic, it comes off so easily and so flawless. So that is something that is so exciting to watch in each debate. I've never really done a formal debate other than the one at Hillsborough College because I'm also a part of it. Justice and Derek are in my team. And yeah, I want to be an attorney, and I think this experience is also great for me. But yeah, thank you for doing all of this.
It is our pleasure. Well, I have the results, but before I say that, I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to participate in this. We know having a preliminary round is a big time commitment, and then the idea of traveling, just sort of facing it all again. We really, really thank you. So I'd like for our judges to step over to this side. Ms. Jackson, would you like to announce the winners here? I have them right here.
Well, first, can we thank Dean Demers for her amazing, this is a lot to stand. I want to say this, too. We did this during COVID, and she was just as great during COVID. You should check us out online. Everything is digitized. Same space, same time, so thank you for always doing this.
It's my pleasure. I got to witness this tonight. Gives me such a thrill. Not only, I have to say, not only is Professor Jackson my former student, but Professor Moriarty is also my former trial advocacy, right? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And they will stay my students for forever. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the lesson. These teachers you have, who are your speech teachers, they're going to be in your head for the rest of your life. We promise you.
Well, thank you. So I know you guys are anxious. We want to thank our judges in advance for their hard work. So I think you usually do this, Judge. We're doing third place first? Okay. So in third place, Antonio Valle. Congratulations. Thank you. Please, you can stand over there. In second place, Kingston James.
Hold on a second.
And in first place, Costin Lewis. To each of you all, well done. I know that you all know today was quite a day, right? Yes. So they've been here all day long. They've been working all day long. They've done an amazing job. So thank you. We have to close out our program. So I'll just close it out from here. The purpose of this type of debate is to encourage critical analysis and to have the opportunity to learn how to engage with each other on a professional basis. But the debate space does so much more. Our coaches work tirelessly from the end of July when we start harassing them to say, hey, will you do this again for us? And then right when they're planning to come back to school, when they have their own classes to take care of, they start working on how they will attract students to do and engage in this debate. And then right when they're in the midst of starting school, they are also working tirelessly with students they've never seen in some cases, try to get them to the level as necessary for public speaking and engaging with the Institute and engaging with their own colleges. It is no easy feat to do all this, and we have done it for many, many years. And on top of it, all of the other, our SPC team has been, they act as coaches plus mentors to all of the new people who come in to work, and we have really good conversations about how to make the student experience better. So I just want to say a particular thank you to each of you all for everything that you do to make students shine in the Florida college system. If you want to learn more about the Institute and what we do and who we are, we try to be extremely transparent. Please go to isps.spcollege.edu. But more importantly, engage with us on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram and let us know what you want us to do with you. We are here as a resource for you. With that, I'll close it out. We have dinner and fun, and it's all waiting for you all. And thank you all for your participation tonight.